Got it. All right. I will, excuse me, call to order a special budget meeting of the Willington Board of Selectmen. It is Wednesday, February 16th, 2022 at 5 p.m. I'll note that all of our selectmen are in attendance. Present to speak. Is there anyone on the call who wishes to speak? If so, unmute yourself, state your name for the record, and we just ask that you limit yourself to 2 minutes. Quiet bunch. Okay. Seeing none, I will move forward. So we will start with our budget workshop. Give me 1 second. Kelsey, can you see if Donna's going to join us?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, so this weekend or last Friday evening, you should have received a run of the budget from Donna with all of the salaries cleaned up in anticipation of a ratified CBA. And one of the things Liza had asked about in that in our last meeting was if we could tell how much of our budget really we saw some flexibility in. So I'll share with you some calculations I've done. We're looking at 39% is people and benefits. About 21% of this budget is contracted work. Our dumpsters, our IT, maintenance contracts, plowing contractor, those sorts of things. 3.5% is utilities, and just over 18% is maintenance on all the facilities, and that does include maintenance within the public works budget. So we're looking at about 82% of our budget. So what falls outside of that, I'll just give you a broad scope. That would be any and all supplies, and that includes public works supplies. So the supplies they would need, general supplies for maintenance, which are significant. Things like miscellaneous things like the car show and Memorial Day. Funding additional personal property audits out of the assessor's office. Any training and education of our staff, and that would include, some of the CCM events that I attend, and that all of our staff are able to attend, dues and conferences outside of work, and CIP. So the numbers you see represented for CIP were voted on and approved at last night's meeting. So we'll be seeing a full presentation of CIP at our regular meeting on Tuesday night. But the numbers are represented here within this budget. So your thoughts as you've had a chance to take a look at this budget, Jim or Liza?
Well,
excuse me.
As is no surprise, when I took a look, I went through fairly closely this morning and kind of combed through all of the line items, with the exception of, maybe 1 or 2 questions that I had. I have very few suggestions or ideas for where to trim back even further. And the only 2 areas that I had questions about, one was the assessor and whether or not this was the right time to move forward with increasing the hours for that position. And then the other question that I had was about the amount of money we're moving over into the capital reserve fund. And I know that is part of CIP, so I'm sure we'll learn more about that. But I didn't notice any other significant area where I could have suggested cutbacks that would have made any kind of noticeable dent in the overage that we have.
I'm muted. Sorry, Jim. We can't hear you, Jim.
Can't hear you, Jim.
I could tell you disconnected something. I heard a buzz. No. All right.
Can you
Well,
try
Jim,
your audio settings and see what your
speaker is set at,
what it's set at for
or your
Zoom?
microphone.
How about this?
There you go. Now we can hear you.
Goodness. I had a similar observation that Liza had. Yeah, I'm not sure this is the time to increase assessor line item right there. I also had some questions about, I just need a refresh on the town clerk. I think you said that those are, that's the actual salaries that we have. Not, they're not really increases. They're just, it's just the way the budgeting was. We have different bodies in there and here's their actual salaries.
That is correct. So if you look at in the selectmen's line item, there's a big difference in the administrative assistant. It was still reflective of when Robin was in this office, and the town clerk was still reflective of the previous town clerk, and they kind of flipped in salary. So now they are trued up for the people that are in those actual departments. So you'll see a decrease in one and an increase in the other, sort of not in the same amount of dollars, because we've had some personnel changes, but that's what that is. So that's cleaning it up to be be reflective of the actual staff currently.
Okay, that's what I thought. I noticed a lot of line items in various areas increasing on maintenance, IT support, postage, heating oil, diesel, senior center on maintenance. You know, those are one of those things like, well, if you don't do it now, you're going to do it later in a capital project. You're going to do it sooner or later. It doesn't, you know, and in fact, usually if you wait later, it's worse. So, I mean, keeping up with maintenance all seems very reasonable. We talked about there's a lot of tree problems and all that. And sometimes, you know, there may be a real need to deal with trees, but maybe that you could do something. I don't know. My suggestion would be like maybe do half of them now, you know, take care of half of them in one fiscal year and then maybe the other half in another. I mean, if that's at all possible. Otherwise, a lot of stuff, it can look like regular salaries, vehicle maintenance, road maintenance, diesel. I like to maybe Troy can help me answer a question. I'm looking at line, this is row 177. It says road maintenance. I'm not exactly sure what road that means, that $25,000 in road maintenance. It's an extra $11,000 increase. Somehow that
30.
Yeah, so we were going to add, there was a couple of spots, Jim, that we were going to add some metal guardrail in. So that's where that came out of. That's why the road was going to be there. It's not, you know, we can't buy a mile of guardrail, but there's a few smaller sections that we've had a couple complaints on that we can't put the wooden poles back. So now we're going to put some guardrail. That's why that got bumped up that way.
Okay, I've noticed it like on Loshi there, you know, around the truck stop. They seem to always, they look like pretzels to me all the time. So
yeah,
okay, that's probably just one of many. I don't know. One of the optional line items that we talked about was the junior labor and all that, and I don't know.
So that is
I'm uncomfortable with that
the
one.
JR are the staff members' initials. So it's just a regular laborer.
Oh, as a regular laborer, is that the new hire or
No? So
okay? So
Donna, we had asked Donna to show us. No, Donna had asked. We had asked Donna to show us what it would look like without the additional laborer Troy asked for. So the run you're seeing currently is not reflective of any new positions. There are some change in salary in some positions, but no new additional staff.
Okay, yeah, then never mind that comment about the, you know, I'm not, nothing particular about JR.
So
again, let's see, public works all over the place. Line 311,
what department?
650, parts and supplies, $6,000 increase, a total of 15. Let's see, not sure where that's out of.
That's you, Troy.
looks like
That's
it's under-
public, that's
Yeah,
It looks like
public
Public
works.
Works.
Yeah, that's just the cost of everything going up, the parts. I mean, without a mechanic, we're paying for parts to be fixed and stuff like that. So,
Vehicle parts, okay.
vehicle parts. Yep, that's vehicle parts.
Because parts for any maintenance here in the town office building, Troy, correct me, would come out of the maintenance budget in the town office building, right? So this is really anything specifically to do with your machinery.
Yeah, machinery. Yep, this is part, you know, say if we needed a special wrench or something, that's where it comes out of, you know, that's where all, that's why
Yeah,
that got raised.
filters,
Yeah.
everything, right? Yep.
Everything, yeah.
Line, let's see, 311, line 730, equipment purchase, that's up $25,000.
That's,
That
I
was
think,
with
what
the
Troy
Up
Connex
had
10,000,
requested.
yep,
Yep,
pardon me,
that was with the
10,000.
Connex box.
So that's purchasing
Connex,
an
okay.
additional Connex box. So,
And if that
you know,
needs to be, if that's, well, not to, oh, sorry, Erica.
no,
if
I was
that-
just, I think we were gonna say the same thing, Troy.
If that needs to be taken out this year, then we'll just deal with what we've been dealing with. I mean, it's not, it is what it is. You know what I mean? That's, if that I can deal without it. It's not a need. It was more of a want to do easier things with the evictions, but if it's not, then we'll put it outside, tarp it, or whatever we have to do.
If it means anything, I have been talking to Representative Nuccio about that. I said, hey, you know, is this Connex box with the evictions going up? She goes, oh, that sounds like a very obvious thing we could put under the you know, the committee there for the
ARPA.
funds there. It's escaping my brain here. I'm having an
ARPA.
end of day
Mhm.
brain cramp there, but that might be something you could take out of your budget and still get it and just put it before your commission.
Yeah, that's
Well, if
not.
I'm- Sorry, I thought we have to put it in our budget anyway and then
No, we do not.
put it before ARPA. No?
So there are two things. If we could put it in our budget and then ask ARPA, and then we haven't spent it, but if we think we could get it from ARPA, I would rather not go to the taxpayers and have them, you know, foot the bill unnecessarily. So, you know, we don't have any confirmations from, but, you know, when I hear Troy say this is a want versus a need, I think I agree with him. I think it's something that would be incredibly beneficial. Seeing some of the things that have come in and the amount of things, and that's just from one eviction we had. We had a tremendous amount, an entire house full. If we had multiple evictions, just being able to store them is really it's on the backs of municipalities, and it can become cumbersome. Now, we don't have to keep them here. We could use a storage facility and pay for that, but the cost is on the municipality. And then if when, not if, an auction is held, any proceeds, the town can recoup their costs first, and then the rest would go back to the individual whose belongings they were. But Jim, I might agree with you. This might be something, because I think if we had to cut, if we were going to cut $10,000 out of this area, I'd rather us cut that than Troy be down money to properly repair guardrails that could affect public safety.
Of course.
Or
Yeah,
parts and supplies.
yeah.
So that I have a short list of things that I wanted to propose, and that is on my short list to talk about when we're done with.
And I have another, again, this is
Mhm.
maybe just a dumb informational question for Troy. And I'm looking at line 687, salt for the roads, road salt. You said, I remember you saying this is calcium chloride treated salt. So it's really a salt it's a special salt, basically. Is this what, this is what you can't get like plain regular salt anymore? This is a dumb question. Forgive me for asking if it is.
No,
But
no.
this is what you get off the state contract. This is what they deal with now. And you know, we go along, and that's the best thing you can get.
Right, exactly. So, okay, so you still can buy regular salt. Regular
Yeah.
salt only works to a certain degree.
Right.
So basically, my theory is in the early winter time, we can use regular salt. And when the coldest months come, we'll use, for like, say 2 months or whatever it is, we'll use the treated salt. And then, like, right now, we're starting to hopefully go into spring, the temperatures, we'll go back to using regular salt. So that treated salt is treated with a chemical. So when it hits the road, it doesn't bounce that far, and it stays on the road. And it actually reactivates, just like the state does, when it hits moisture again. That's why a lot of times you look at state roads, they're white, and then they look like they're moist all the time if you get a temperature where the humidity is just the right temperature.
Right.
So
Yep.
that's where it is. And it's also the price, the cost of it. It comes off of a state bid, so we're paying off of a state contract.
Okay, I thank you for explaining that, because I wasn't sure whether we were buying all of it or some blend or some combination, but thank you for explaining.
We're mixing it. We tried mixing it with the sand. It didn't really work. They took the effectiveness out of it. So it's either you run it pure or you mix it. We just use regular salt and mix with the sand. So there's a couple storms we've actually just ran pure salt and noticed a huge difference. And there's times where we run just our mix. And it's just the way the storm rolls.
Troy, did the cost of both of those salt increase significantly?
Yes. Yep.
Moving on to the transfer station, I'm looking at a giant, again, $20,000 increase. It says trash removal, 527. We always, I learned of that. I think that's tipping fees. Is that the trucking to get it out of there?
Yeah, every year it's gone up, that new contract.
We have a
So
contract.
last year was this and now it's this. And the price of trash, it seems like there's a lot of trash being brought to that transfer
Yeah,
station.
okay.
I'm surprised. how
And
much
Jim, I
trash
believe
gets
this is this was a 5-year average.
Yep.
So we use a 5-year average times the contracted cost we have to get
Okay.
to where we're at. But our contract went up significantly. They had to raise prices in quite a while. Last year, they increased their price. We got them to hold firm for the rest of the fiscal year last year, and then it kicked in again in July.
And I know in the past we've done it was a by truckload or something like that, and therefore it was advantageous to go squish it down with with a backhoe or something like that. But I assumed if it was that easy, we would have done it. It's probably now by weight or.
Yeah, it's all by weight. So I
But
mean,
all by
bulky
weight.
waste,
it's all by, if we call out a dumpster that's got 1 2x4 in it, you're gonna pay so much. If we fill it right to the brim and pack it, and which Matt, he packs those dumpsters. They don't go out.
Oh,
light.
yeah.
They're
Okay.
pretty heavy actually.
but
So-
the
so
trash,
tho-
can I ask, the trash portion is compacted with a machine,
Yes,
but
we have a
we
machine and then,
compact on
yes,
our own the bulky waste.
bulky waste, the cardboard, the single stream we pack, yes.
Okay.
Excuse me.
Okay. So that takes care of all the easy stuff then.
All right. So
Okay.
I have a couple of suggestions. I'm sorry, Jim, were you done?
Yeah, I'm done because it pretty much. So I agree with Eliza. I wouldn't grow the assessor.
Okay. So I'm going to touch on
Salary if
that.
we
I'm going
can,
to touch
so.
on that piece first. Last
Okay.
Friday morning, our assessor quit effective immediately. So we are currently without an assessor. So we happen to have a staff member who worked in that office as an assistant assessor who is assisting us while I look for someone interim while we decide what to do. I can see your concerns with growing it in the shared position we talked about with the town of Bolton. I hear those concerns in the dollar amounts. I do not think we can effectively do the work that needs to be done with the 8 to 10 hours we currently have budgeted. And I say that confidently because in the last 4 days, the things we are unearthing that have not been done in some time, there's going to be some amount of work that needs to be done in that department. So my proposal would be if we keep the same model we have, hiring someone on our own, kind of split the difference, right? I would love to go with the model we talked about. I think it will bring us a better, potentially a stronger candidate. But if we bump that to 24 hours a week, in some configuration at the very least, that could bring us 3 8-hour days, or a different configuration depending on the individual. And so my proposal is I have the subtracted, if we budgeted $35,000 in that position, that would bump it over the 20 hours a week where we would have to have benefits. So there would be a potential cut in this line item of $25,894. But Donna, we would need to account for
Part-time benefits.
for part-time benefits. Now, it's very possible that the candidate may not need those benefits, but we'd want to account for them. So that is my proposal. I have big concern with the work already that I'm hearing has been neglected, that we found, and this is in 4 days of someone being in that office. And that if we stick to the 8 to 10 hours, that model just isn't sustainable for us. I think there's been some time we've known we needed more time. This will get us, I think, a good balance and better meet the needs than we're currently receiving. So that's my proposal there. I hear your concerns and us needing to try to find a saving somewhere, and that this is the big salary piece that adds us. While we think about that, let me suggest my other cuts to you. If we are in the Human Services Department, so this is on the last page, page 11 of your budget, and it is 13,300. So that's line 289 in your spreadsheet. Jenny has asked for an increase, to bring her salary in line, as well as a part-time person in the senior center. My proposal, and I'm making a formal request to ARPA, is to phase that in. So over the 3 years that we can use ARPA funds, that would put 75% of it with ARPA this year, 50% with ARPA next year, and a quarter with ARPA next year. So we phase in an increase into the operating budget. And so my request would be to cut $14,934 out of that line, and then request the remainder, that $14,934 to ARPA. And I have already formally filled out the request for a portion of it, and then be working on the other half. So it's keeping the department as Jenny has presented. It's funding it from 2 different sources.
So you said 50%, 25%, and 25%?
No, 75, 50, 25. So we'd be paying,
75.
so our portion would be a quarter, 50, 75. So we incrementally take on that, the increase is funded, but we incrementally take it into the operating budget. So this year we would pay a quarter. So my proposal is makes it an increase of $4,978. So that would make a total request of $58,466. And a way for us not to use ARPA to bring in new staff without recognizing how we pay for that, and we phase that in. My next proposal is.
Can I ask one
Yeah,
quick question
you
about
sure
that?
can.
The only concern is, like, I think, sorry, there's background noise. Hopefully it's not too distracting. What happens if ARPA for some reason denies that request? Can we then put it back in our budget?
If that happens prior to the Board of Finance finalizing the budget, yes. This is, and ARPA talked, we meet next Monday, no, the following Monday, the 28th. And this will be one of the proposals I'll be asking them to fast track. Certainly ripe for ARPA funding out of that department. And we know we see an increased need. We know we have a need in our senior services. So there was already some discussion at our last meeting, and Jenny's on here. And Jenny, I welcome you weighing in on this discussion. There was already some discussion about cost, and I'm just proposing a portion of it come from ARPA. So we take half, and so you can see, ARPA will be able to see our commitment to this process. And I think that will help that. And there seemed to be favorable conversation about the need of those kinds of requests.
Yeah, I'd just like to say thank you for that. From the get-go, well, traditionally, human services staff is very, very underpaid to begin with. And these funds from the get-go were designed to help out with that sort of need, because it's such an important job. But the pay is very minimal, and frequently you qualify for your own programs. So that's what this money was initially set for, and I'm really grateful that you guys are okay with my increase, and of course the increase of Nan at the senior center now that we no longer have our long-term volunteer. So I think that this makes sense. I hope that the ARPA fund would be, I mean, the ARPA committee rather, would be on board with this, and I don't see why it would be an issue. It's not, in the grand scheme of things, a massive amount of money. And I hope that seeing the support of the selectmen would assist in that.
It
Thank
was
you,
just
Jenny.
sort of a hypothetical, right? Like, we wouldn't want to be in a position where, you know, then we don't get the support that we've identified that we need in your department. You know, so it's a hypothetical, probably not a likely scenario, but just something that I wanted to consider.
From a timing perspective, Liza, ARPA next meets on February 28th. Our budget will be presented to the Board of Finance on March 3rd. So I think there could be an answer of, yes, we are going to provisionally support this, and then let the process with ARPA, you know, work its way out. And then we would know. And if ARPA says, no way, we just can't, this isn't something we're going to take on, I would be surprised by that, but it's a possibility. Then on if this board agrees with that, then at that time, but before March 3rd, we could add that back into our budget and say, you know, you're going to be hearing this without, and then the board at their next meeting would take some action and say, we want to send an additional request to the Board of Finance. And so I think it's very possible we'd have some sort of response from ARPA prior to presenting at Board of Finance. All right, my other additional cuts, if you go up into the town office building, town office operations, which is Department 181 on page 5. I'm looking at line 181, 430, maintenance and miscellaneous. I asked for in this budget, I brought to you 3 projects that I believe need to be done in this department. And so one of them is replacing the air conditioner in the vault for $7,000 was the initial quote we received. In addition, it was some lighting in the back of the town office building, which I still think is incredibly necessary, and some additional security measures in the upstairs portion of this building. We are not unsecure. If we do not do those this year, our building will still be secure in the same way it has been for years. These were recommended changes, and after the break-in that we had, it made sense to me to pursue those. So I would, at this point, suggest that we remove $7,900 from that department, which would bring the total increase to $19,000. I would leave the AC unit. We had to have some repairs done last year. It's possible that repair will hold and last, but the uncertainty of what would happen to our documents if they weren't you know, stored in a proper manner is concerning to me. And I would take the others out. And then in this year, if we have some surplus, I might look at least to do the lighting on the back of this building. I think that is a more pressing safety concern. If you're ever here at nighttime and leaving the building, it is very hard to see out there. And we're looking at about $3,900 for that. So I would look for some surplus in our budget this year for those items. And then as we move forward and potentially look at facility study with a pending school building project, we could I would revisit the additional security measures in this building. I still think that they're needed, but they will not change our current effectiveness. So we're not unsecure, in my opinion.
So that goes down to 19,000 is what you're saying.
Correct. I would leave in the AC vault replacement, in the vault replacement. And Robin, if you want to touch on that, I know when we did the repair, they certainly can't give us a guarantee on how long it will last, but the recommendation from the vendor we used and those that we got quotes from were that it be replaced and not just repaired. And at the time, we didn't have the funding to completely replace, so we did the repair. But the vault has to be kept maintained at a constant temperature.
I'm sorry, I'm listening. And I have dogs barking. Yeah, so the mini split unit in the vault is probably, I think it's like at least 10 years old. And yeah, we're not sure of how much longer the whole unit could last. And as you stated, the documents, the town documents have to be kept at a climate controlled year round. So it is important. And I do thank you for keeping that in consideration. Sorry, my phone is dying too.
That's
but I'm not
okay.
sure if you can hear me.
Yeah, we can.
Okay.
Thank you, Robin.
Thank you.
And again, we know from the documents that were stored in the basement what can happen if we're not storing our documents properly. And we certainly don't want to find ourselves in that place once again. So I'll recommend that. So those are my proposed cuts. I can see those reflected on my side. I made the changes in the document that Donna shared with us. What I don't have is what would that do to the insurance line items. But for discussion purposes, let me make the adjustment to, I even made the equipment purchase adjustment. That brings our increase to 9.07% and $335,900.
You mean you remove the Connex box?
Yes, I removed the Connex box. I reduced the assessor. I reduced the human services, and I reduced the maintenance and miscellaneous. But that's without the insurance piece. And I don't know if Donna, it's broken up over multiple categories. What that
So
cost
the
would be.
insurance piece is already in the budget for Nancy King to work part-time.
No, Donna, I apologize. That's me making the adjustment to the assessor.
Okay,
So it was built into that $60,000 number because it wasn't insurance out of our insurance. But if we
Yes.
change the model to 24 hours and staying on our own independent, I've accounted for the salary piece at 35,000, but not the insurance piece.
okay, 18,000 for the insurance piece.
Thank you.
Round numbers. It's really
Okay.
18,295.
18,295. I'm just gonna rough add that to department here. Oops, sorry. All right, so that brings us to a 9.56% increase, $354,195. And you can see from Donna's in the cover page of this budget and the breakdown per department that the capital plan as it will be presented on Monday night represents a $64,465 increase or 10%. So there are some significant increases in money into the capital reserve. There's a significant decrease out of capital expenditures and a decrease in debt repayment, public works leases, and other debt repayment. So the net is a 10% increase. So individually, those numbers are large, but as a program, it's small. I won't say 64,000 is small, but
So-
it's an investment in our capital plan.
What is the overall capital spending increasing by?
$64,465
Not affecting the budget, the overall. You mean 64,000 overall?
overall. Correct. There's a decrease in capital expenditures, in debt repayment and public works leases, and there's an increase to dollars into the capital reserve. And so the net of that entire program is $64,000, $465 increase over last year.
Okay. Because you have to look at the whole thing, and you want, capital spending should be in line with grand list growth. And I know we do have a little bit of grand list growth.
We do have a little bit of grand list growth. It
So
takes into
that would
account
make it
that.
sustainable, and it's hard to figure otherwise because you got so many inflows coming on and coming off. So
Correct.
I'm anxious to look at that presentation when that.
Yeah, so
that's
we'll see
available.
the whole presentation on Monday from those folks. And I think it's important to keep in mind, and we heard this last year when we saw some increase there, and we'll hear about it again. There have been years where we had increase in growth, but everything in our capital plan stayed steady. So there was not a lot of increase in that in our capital plan. It didn't grow the way you would think that it would have grown. And so trying to tackle that at the same time. And the plan tackles the potential of a school building project because it would go one way or the other, either individual projects or one school building project. So the plan went in one direction, but they, certainly that's in the out years, not in year one. It's not none of that spending is represented in year one of the plan, which affects our budget. So, the question we ask ourselves is, are we comfortable with a $354,000 increase moving forward to the Board of Finance? And we can, we certainly keep having our discussions here. What other cuts? I proposed a different change to the assessor's position. You both suggested this might not be the time to make a change. I'd be curious your thoughts on where we stand between the last meeting and this meeting.
What was the increase that you proposed, Erica? I wasn't fast enough to write it
I'm
down.
proposing a flat $35,000 salary.
Mhm.
And that, let me get back to that line. And so currently we're at 22,724, and that doesn't account for any potential increases as a result of the CBA. That would have gone, with the initial, with a current staff member, that's not the case. So in this current fiscal year, I wouldn't propose those changes. I'd be looking at a flat 35,000. Plus, again, the 18,000 and change that Donna shared with insurance. Depending on the individual, there is a possibility we could see a savings due to a need or lack thereof of insurance. So on paper, it looks like a 54% increase.
It's
For the assessor.
Right, correct.
Yeah.
it's
It
about
was-
$12,000, right? So
It's $12,276. It was over $40,000.
and
I'm,
although I'm not comfortable with a 9.5% increase, I mean, you're really boiling down to now a lot of, in my mind, inflationary kind of things. I mean, I'm not sure how you cut that or where you cut that. You can't say don't do maintenance. You can't say don't, buy diesel or use less diesel, or you can't say, we will use less heating oil. It's
Right.
this is what happens when you get this runaway style inflation. So, and I think we've done our best to, it looks like we've done our best to not bring on additional positions other than maybe this one here at $12,000, but that's not exactly what I would call a large increase
Okay.
with respect to the overall selectmen's budget. I don't know. So my opinion is, I think we've done a lot, or we've done as much as we could. I'm not comfortable with it, but you know,
Right, I'm with you, Jim. It's under, a mill, but it's still significant. It's more significant than I think we've presented. I certainly can say in, the 4 years prior to now, it's the most significant increase we've taken, but the cost of doing business is significant. We're seeing a larger increase simply because we did not have, when Board of Finance is looking at this, they're going to see a larger increase in our salaries. And that can be explained in, we're looking over a 2-year period of time. And over our 2 periods, it just wasn't budgeted. It was not factored into the original budget last year, not having a CBA done. But I'm not sure, what we caught. Jim, you mentioned earlier, are there things, within Public Works, do we do some of the trees this year and some of the trees next year? I would, ask that Troy weigh in on that, because when we're talking about the emerald ash borer, he had gotten a quote from a vendor about coming in and doing one stretch of road that we know right now needs attention. And that was somewhere in the $40,000 range. And so if we're looking at about $50,000 worth of spending, typically the additional $50,000, I think, still gets us with the trees we know today need to be done. And we do not have, currently, we don't have those dollars in our budget. And so I'm hesitant to say, let's cut any more in that tree budget, because Troy, can you talk to us about the time frame of these emerald ash borer trees?
The ash trees basically have 9 months. Once the tree is diseased, with 9 months, it'll be laying on the ground. And the limbs will start to fall. And ash trees are very weak. They're not like an oak or a maple or hickory. Ash, once they have it, the limbs will start to fall. And we're getting some high winds here between today and tomorrow night. So we'll see what happens. And like Erica said, one road had 125 trees that need to be removed. So it's, Jim, to your point, to be like, hey, can we cut half the road one year and half the road the next? Those trees are diseased. They'll probably be on the ground by the time.
they'll be on the ground. Okay, well, that's the kind of input we're looking for.
Yeah.
And that's, it's, and granted, it's, I don't want to say it's a public safety thing more, you know what I mean? That tree can come down at any time. It's not going to say, oh, it's nighttime, no one's around, I'm going to fall. It could come down.
Yeah, no, that's okay. I understand. I thank you for, but I'm going to ask those kind of questions and figure out where,
Oh, and that's absolutely.
yeah.
Jim, I keep going back to that same $50,000. It stands out to us like that's a significant increase, and trying to find other ways to do some of that work now and take the burden off. But I just, at this point, we've already spent so much on trees. That's not where I want to cut it, because I am worried about public safety. But I keep coming back to the same $50,000, and then I keep hearing Troy's description. We've talked to other arborists who are, telling us the same thing, and we're seeing it. So comfortable with this. I'm comfortable with this budget. Am I happy with the numbers they are? No. So I look at it in two different ways. It's, any increase to our taxpayers is really difficult to put forth, but I think this budget adequately meets the needs of the town as it stands. I know I could see some more. I still see the need for the additional positions Troy has recommended, but reluctantly have taken them out for discussion purposes. There's a need, but if I had to say, can we fix the vehicles that we have or have a new person, I'll take the money to send them out to be fixed. If it means cutting the trees down or having an additional laborer We got to get those dangerous trees down. And right now with the additional need in the assessor's office, and if I'm having to prioritize the need to adjust a position right now that is vacant is more pressing to me than adding additional staff. But I will once again echo the sentiments from our Public Works Director that there is a need for at least one additional member in his department. Liza?
No, I think the tree question, for me, that's a no-brainer. We've got to keep that in the budget. Because yeah, either we cut them down or they fall. And that was the issue that we had this current fiscal year, right? So in any event, I think we've done what we can do. Yes, are we comfortable with the increase? No, but is it what we can do now without reducing the quality of our services? Yeah, it's what we've got to work with.
And we're not talking big numbers, folks, but I accounted for it in my numbers, but I did not mention to you, Janice, our revenue collector, was able to find some savings in her training and education line item. The current assistant tax collector is taking the third of 4 courses currently. And she'll have the opportunity, because of low enrollment, to take the 4th course immediately following this spring. So Janice is going to use dollars from her budget this year to go ahead and send her to that class now. And so she cuts $865 out of Department 137,645. That's line 62 on your spreadsheet. So down to $2,115. Not a lot of dollars, but found some savings that just came up this afternoon. So the good news about that is by the fall, we should have 2 certified tax collectors within our tax office, which we know is beneficial. So when I tell you we have been looking for any cut we can make, here we are. I know, Donna, you were still waiting for the numbers for our accounting software. Have you received that yet?
No, Erica, I'm sorry, I haven't received them. I've been asking and asking.
Right. At the very minimum, I think we need to budget. We need to put a number in here to budget for.
Yes, a budget for a 5% increase.
5%. Okay. So we were at
Yes.
25,993. $1,300. Oops. And then Donna, I have one other departmental question for you.
Yes,
If you are looking in the senior center budget,
yes,
so that in 185,822 senior center program, there's $1,000 in there. Is that the pass-through money?
yes, it is.
So is that duplicated below in the transfer out to handicap vehicle, that $1,000?
No, it's 2 separate things.
Okay. All right, I just wanted to make sure that I was clear on the fact that they were 2 different items. So what does the first one go to?
So the senior center program, the $1,000 is just money that we give to them that they use to run their programs.
Okay. At one point, we took the handicap vehicle out, and that's where it's represented separately now.
Yes, because it's actually, this is the way the new accounting software is set up. That is a fund transfer.
Okay.
That is why that is separated.
I knew we took it out and moved it. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't seeing it duplicated. All right. And so what I want to make sure is that we've accounted for all of the selectmen departments, and I think my one last question mark was Donna's financial software. So let me give you a new total. Okay, not much better than where we started, folks. $381,488 and or 10.3%.
Erica, I think we should revisit the computer expense, only because I didn't make a spreadsheet of all the different items that go in there.
Okay,
And that number of 169,000. Okay, so this current year, we have money in there for the Office 365. And I
Yeah.
just want to make sure that didn't get carried over.
okay.
And money for the licenses. And I think that number of 169,000,
It's overstated.
I think it might be, because I don't have a spreadsheet to back it up.
Okay,
But I know that you worked on that, and
Okay.
I'm not sure what exactly.
so I accounted for a 3% increase in Novus. And I
Okay.
apologize, Donna, they still haven't sent us the exact forms. So maybe you and I can clean that up between now and our meeting on Tuesday. And then
Yes.
I added for $1,500 for cyber training. And I believe I talked to you all about the need for some training for phishing scams. Once again, last week, if you were on a meeting with us, I don't know if it was Board of Finance or CIP, it came up where several members within that committee meeting at that point had received emails. I don't know, Liza, if you or Jim had received emails from a member of our staff, and multiple staff members, as well as people who are outside of our network, actually clicked on the links within that. So this is some training in phishing scams and being able to avoid those. We've had some repeats of that, and in my mind, they could be catastrophic. And so this allows for some training of our staff in order to recognize what they see outside of just the typical kind of course discussions that we've had. So Donna, I'll clean up those numbers from Novus for you, and then looking at all of the other items that come out of that line item, we can work on that this week.
Yes, let's do it
Okay.
together,
Yes.
because there's some,
Got it.
we also pay for
The
the
lo-
fires program. We have
Mhm.
a few different things that get added in there.
Okay. All right, we'll go through that and see, and the licenses for the Microsoft 365 conversion are in there, and those some of those costs will carry over, but there will be some, so we may be able to find some savings there.
So could you just review the numbers again? What's our increase? 388,000?
Yes. Before any adjustments to the computers line item, I have 381,488 or 10.3%.
488.
So I think we'll be looking between 9 and 10%. When all is said and done, if we're comfortable with maintaining the items we currently have. And this, just a refresher, this is a 0% increase on our insurance, on our health insurance. So in the past, we've gone into a budget presentation with an increase in insurance. So there's been some buffer throughout the year because it would come in lower than our anticipated costs because they don't line up with the budget season. We'd finalize our budget, and then in end of May, we would get the new numbers. So within a budget, there might be some dollars additionally that doesn't exist this year. So departments will be tight with what they have. I don't anticipate us finding savings as we go through the year, unless out of health insurance, somebody suddenly didn't take insurance. And Donna, we still have factored in one placeholder.
Yes.
So our budget is set to be presented on Thursday, March 3rd, so 2 weeks from tomorrow. Typically, Board of Finance would like the budget a week before. I would like us to get it to them as soon as we're comfortable and done with it. If that means at our meeting on Tuesday, then what we'll do is clean this up and prepare for a potential vote. If we think on Tuesday that we still need some more time, I encourage us to do so. And I can communicate with Board of Finance where we're at that point, instead of a finalized budget if we're not ready. But what we'll have on the agenda for our regular meeting on Tuesday night will be a vote on the selectmen's budget, a potential vote on the selectmen's budget and the CIP budget, and you'll get a full presentation from CIP at that point. And we'll have all those documents to you before the weekend so that you can take a look at them. At the CIP at least. Any other items that you want to discuss? Look, we've looked at and we've cut a few things. Certainly, if you find that there's something that needs to be added, I'll throw it out there. I don't want to deter you from thinking there's something we need and we're not meeting.
I think I'm most looking forward to what you and Donna come up and get that next revision out.
Yeah. So it will
We'll do the same thing again, review it, you know.
Yeah, we'll account for all of the changes I proposed, the cuts I proposed tonight. And then taking another look at the computer expense line. And Donna, do you know what the most current fuel price you've received is? Share that with us.
I got pricing today. I can look it up really quickly and tell you. $2.76 a gallon for heating oil and $2.81 for diesel.
Folks, we budgeted for $2.50 a gallon. And we are currently paying 164 or 163 or 165. So going in the wrong direction. All right. If there's between now and Tuesday, there's something you want us to take a look at or any questions that you have ahead of time that we can get answers for, if you can share those with Kelsey, and we will work to get them if a department head can answer a question for us, or if it's something for myself or Donna. Anything else from Liza or Jim?
I'm good.
You're good. I'm going to say I'm okay. It's really hard to balance the needs with this rising cost. And see what that looks like. Just to give you a little bit, all of the budgets are not included, but you can see in Donna's report at the bottom of page 11, if everything were to stay the way it was presented to you at the beginning of that meeting, what the overall budget increase would be. There may be some changes on either the Board of Ed side or Region 19. And again, there's still some budgets that are not in this budget that are presenting to Board of Finance tomorrow night. I've seen them so far, and they're not large increases. So it's still a significant increase over the current fiscal year. And you can see that in every year. Right now, Region 19 is presenting a 3.4% increase for Wellington. We're on the downside this year. If you remember last year, we had a significant increase and we were 10% above the year before. We're now seeing a 3.4% over our high year when we had 10%. So that's very surprising to me. I'll be interested to hear their budget discussions, because I thought when it wasn't our turn to take a big hit, we might actually see close to a reduction or flat. And and we're not. We took a 10% increase and it's still over that. So it's a number we need to talk, we can talk with our representatives about, but it is not a number that is formulated from our local Board of Education. So, all right, folks, seeing no other business, if you don't have any other questions, Donna, do you have any other
No.
concerns you need us to look at? Okay. Seeing none, I would ask for a motion to adjourn at 6 p.m.
Moved.
So
Second.
moved is seconded by, motion by Liza, seconded by Jim. It's non-debatable matter. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, thank you. Donna, thank you. To our department heads here once again, thank you. And
Thank
enjoy
you.
the rest of your evening.
Night.
Thank you, Donna.